All right, so in this lesson, we will simplify expressions using the distributive property. Now, we've actually done this before using just normal numbers, so to speak. Like you've seen this before. So let me just remind you how we can rewrite this first expression. So we can rewrite 1 times 2 plus 3, like together, as, remember, we can do 1 times 2. Remember, that's positive 1, plus 1 times, that's a positive, we can treat that as a positive 3. Right? In this second one, we can start with 2, positive 2, and multiply it by 3, positive 3. And then we're going to add another 2 copies of positive 4. Let's do it one more time. 4 times 3. Remember, that's a positive. So plus 4 times. Now that 2, it says minus 2, so we treat it like a negative 2. So negative 2. Now, here's the thing. You can do it this way, and it's just not very useful. Well, it's not very efficient at this point. So instead of writing 1 times 2, we just go 1 times 2 is 2. So a positive times a positive was a positive. 1 times 2 is 2. A positive times a positive is a plus. 1 times 3 is 3. Let's try it again. So a positive times a positive is a positive. 2 times 3 is 6. A positive times a positive is a positive, so we write plus. 2 times 4 is 8. Right? So a positive times a positive is a positive. 4 times 3 is 12. Positive times a, remember, we treat this 2 has a negative value, so we treat it like a negative. So positive times a negative is a negative 4, so I'm going to write minus. 4 times 2 is 8. Remember, this doesn't say 12 negative 8. This, the way we say it is 12 minus 8. All right, so we'll do it a couple more, well, 3 more times. Okay, so positive times a positive is a positive. 5 times 1 is 5. A positive times a negative value is a negative, so I'm going to write minus. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 minus 10. A negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times 5 is 10. Remember, this 4 has a positive value, so a negative times a positive is a negative, so I'm going to write minus. 2 times 4 is 8. Negative 10 minus 8. One more. So a negative times a positive is a negative. 6 times 2 is 12. A negative times a negative would be a positive, so I'm going to write plus. 6 times 3 is 18. Negative 12 plus 18. All right, so that we've done before, or you've seen. You may not remember everything about it, but it gets the general idea. Now we're going to do it with variables. So positive times a positive is a positive. 4 times x is 4x. A positive times a positive. A positive 4 times 2 is 8. So positive 8. Go to the next one. A positive times a positive. So 2 times 4y. A positive times a positive is a positive. 8y. So a positive times, we treat that like a negative, so a positive times -3. I'll put that in parentheses so y'all can see it better. A positive times a negative is a negative, so I'm going to write minus. 2 times 3 is 6. Alright, so we have a few more we can work on, or like 4 more. So a positive times a positive. So 3 times 2x squared. 3 times 2 is, well, positive times a positive is a positive. 3 times 2 is 6. X, no x's, x squared, x squared. A positive times a negative, so it's really 3 times -5. Positive times a negative is a negative, so I'm writing minus 3 times 5 is 15. Oops, I don't know why this tablet's behaving a little awkwardly. So remember, you don't necessarily have to write these steps on the outside. You can if they help you. A lot of, like, about half of you will probably do that, so you don't mess up. But they're useful. So positive times a positive, 4y times 3y. So 4 times 3 is 12. Y times y is y to the second power. 4y times positive 4. 4y, 4 times 4 is positive 16. Positive times a positive is a positive. 4 times 4 is 16. Y times no more y's is y. Alright. So a positive times a positive again. Oh man, a lot of positives in here. Positive times a positive is a positive. So y times 8y to the third. Remember that if you don't see anything there, you can put a 1 if it helps. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 8 is 8. Y times y to the third is y to the fourth. 1y times positive 2y. 1 times a positive times a positive is a positive, so we're at plus. 1 times 2 is 2. Y times y is y to the second power. One more. Alright, now this one looks slightly different, but it's the same thing. We have these 3 terms on the inside times this 1. So if you want to think about it this way, you can do it like this. So 4w to the third times 2w to the second. 4w to the third times -5 or -5. 4y to the third times -w or -1w. So 4 times a positive times a positive is a positive. 4 times 2 is 8. W to the third, w times w times w times w times w is w to the fifth. 4w to the third, so we're done with that one. 4w to the third times -5. See, this is where there's a lot going on, so I'm just going to start writing this out. Times, remember, we treat that like a minus or -5. Positive times a negative is a negative, so I'm going to write minus. 4 times 5 is 20. W to the third times no more w's is w to the third. So I'm done with this one, Now 4w to the third times -1w. A positive times a negative is a negative, so minus. 4 times 1 is 4. We're going to add space here. W to the third times w. Remember, this is w times w times w times w is w to the fourth power. Oops, let me undo that. All right, thank you.